All right, let's talk real quick. Relationships, especially the deep, emotional ones, are sacred. And yet, we live in a world where sharing is currency. But ladies, there are some things, some powerful personal things, you should never share with your friends. Not because you don't trust them, not because they don't care, but because certain things are better protected than exposed. Today, I want to walk you through 5 of those relationship secrets every strong woman guards with grace. So let's break it down. When you're emotionally charged, it's natural to want to pick up the phone, call a close friend, and just let it all out. You want someone to hear your side, validate your pain, and maybe even back you up when you're unsure about what to do next. But here's the truth that hits harder than most are ready to admit. When you tell your friends every detail of an argument with your partner, you aren't just venting, you're creating a version of your relationship that only exists in moments of conflict. You're handing your friend a single snapshot from a full-length movie and asking them to judge the whole storyline based on that one frame. And they will, not because they want to ruin things, but because they care about you and they're responding to the version of events you've given them. What you may not realize in the moment is that your feelings will shift. Emotions cool down, conversations happen, understanding is reached, apologies are made, and healing begins. But your friend wasn't there for the repair, for the honest apologies, the tears, the long talks at 2 a.m. where both of you laid down your egos and chose each other again. Your friend didn't see the growth, the effort, the way you both held space for one another to be human and flawed. All they remember is how angry you were, what he said that cut you, or the moment you felt dismissed. They remember your pain because that's the only part they were given access to. And what happens next is dangerous in a quiet way. They start forming an image of your partner based solely on his worst moments. They begin viewing him through a lens of caution, even resentment. They may give you advice that doesn't fit your relationship because it's based on incomplete information. Over time, this can influence how you see your own relationship. Doubts creep in where clarity once was. You begin second-guessing decisions, not because you feel unsure, but because outside voices have planted seeds of suspicion that were never meant to grow. That's how the dynamic between you and your partner starts to shift, not because something changed between the two of you, but because you invited too many opinions into a space that was never meant to be public. And here's another layer that most people never consider. Trust isn't just built on the big things. It's built in those quiet, invisible moments when one person chooses not to turn private tension into public spectacle. It's in knowing that when we struggle, we do it together, not on display for everyone else to pick apart. When your partner realizes you've shared your conflicts with others, even if it was innocent, even if you just needed to talk, it can feel like betrayal. Not because you meant harm, but because what was sacred now feels exposed. That kind of wound isn't loud, it's subtle, but it lingers. It shifts how much someone is willing to open up next time. It changes the texture of your communication. And most of the time, that damage doesn't get talked about, it just shows up as distance. There's a difference between seeking wisdom and spreading frustration. If you're constantly unloading every fight to your circle of friends, you're not building solutions. You're building resentment, both in yourself and in those around you. Sometimes it's not about keeping secrets. It's about keeping sacred. It's about honoring the space between two people who are figuring it out, who are learning, growing, and fumbling forward without needing a crowd to witness every misstep. When you choose to process things privately first, or with a neutral third party like a therapist, you're not being cold, you're being protective. You're saying, this relationship matters enough to be handled with care, not commentary. Every relationship will have its rough edges, moments of misunderstanding, and emotional turbulence. But not every moment deserves to be shared. Some things are meant to be sorted in the quiet corners of your relationship, away from the noise of too many opinions. Because the truth is, your friends might mean well, but they will never fully understand the unique bond you have with your partner. Only you and he know the full story, and that story deserves the dignity of privacy, patience, and peace. There are certain things in a relationship that are meant to be shared between just two people, and physical intimacy is at the very top of that list. When a man chooses to be close to you, when he opens up in that raw and physical way, it's not just about passion, it's about trust, it's about safety, it's about being fully seen and still accepted. And when you take those moments and turn them into stories for your friends, even in a lighthearted or joking way, something sacred is lost. The power of those moments begins to fade the second you hand them over for entertainment or casual conversation. It may seem harmless at first, like you're just being open, but what you're really doing is exposing a layer of your relationship that was never meant for outside eyes or ears. Intimacy isn't just physical connection. It's emotional, spiritual, and deeply vulnerable. It's where two people build a kind of language that no one else can translate. It's where your body says what words sometimes can't. When you speak about it too freely, when you turn those experiences into punchlines or anecdotes, you take something incredibly powerful and you reduce it to surface-level content. You give people a window into a space they have no business looking into. And even if they love you, even if they mean well, the way they begin to see your partner can shift. He becomes a topic instead of a person. He becomes a discussion point instead of the man you love. A woman who understands the weight of intimacy knows that not every detail is meant to be shared. She respects the silence between the moments. She honors the privacy of her relationship not because she's ashamed, but because she knows that what happens behind closed doors is part of the glue that holds two people together. It's the invisible thread that weaves their bond tighter. And when you start to pull at that thread by revealing too much, piece by piece, that bond starts to weaken without you even realizing it. Not because the love is gone, but because the boundaries have been blurred. In a world where oversharing has become the norm, choosing to hold something close can feel old-fashioned. But that's exactly what makes it powerful. There's strength in knowing that the most intimate parts of your life don't need an audience. They don't need approval, they don't need feedback, they just need to be protected. When you treat your relationship like it's on display, eventually it becomes performative. You stop being fully present in the moment and start thinking about how to retell it later. That shift, even if subtle, changes how you experience love, how you experience connection, how you experience trust. A man may not always say it out loud, but he feels it deeply when the private moments you share become public knowledge. He may not confront it directly, but he notices when the sacred becomes shared. It makes him pull back. It makes him question how much of himself he can give you if it's all going to be retold. And when that happens, when that wall starts to rise between you, it's not always easy to bring it back down. Intimacy isn't just given, it's nurtured. And once it's mishandled, it takes time to rebuild. Keeping those moments private isn't about being secretive, it's about being selective. It's about choosing what parts of your relationship get to breathe in the open air and what parts are better left in the quiet warmth of the two of you. When you respect that boundary, you give your relationship space to grow without interference. You create an environment where trust flourishes and connection deepens. Because some things aren't meant to be explained. Some things are meant to be felt, to be lived, and to be kept safely between the hearts that created them. When a man opens up about his insecurities, his fears, or the silent battles he's fighting, he's not just talking, he's trusting. He's letting you into a space that most people will never be invited to. That kind of vulnerability doesn't come easily. For many men, it takes years to even admit those things to themselves, let alone say them out loud to someone else. And when he chooses you as the person to hear those truths, it's because he believes you will hold them gently. It's because he feels emotionally safe with you. But when you turn around and share those confessions with your friends, even if it's out of care or confusion or just wanting to talk through it, what you're really doing is breaking an unspoken contract. You're saying this sacred trust was conditional. You're saying his pain is a topic, not a truth. A lot of times it's not about gossip or betrayal with bad intentions. It's subtle, it's casual. It's in the way you mention that he struggles with confidence at work, or that he's dealing with family wounds he never talks about. Maybe you say it with compassion. Maybe your friend is kind and listens with understanding. But even so, what you've done is expose a piece of him he never agreed to let anyone else see. And no matter how gently it's handled, that exposure can never be taken back. Once that part of him leaves your lips, it's no longer just his story. It becomes a shared narrative that he didn't consent to. And that kind of sharing doesn't just hurt, it shifts everything. What most people don't see is how this plays out long term. He may not react with anger. He may not even say anything. But inside, something closes. A door that was once wide open starts to creak shut. He starts to measure his words. He starts to carry his pain alone again. Not because he wants to, but because the one place he thought was safe didn't stay that way. Trust, once broken in these quiet ways, doesn't always explode. It erodes. It fades in small, unspoken moments until the connection that once felt unshakable begins to feel uncertain. And it's not about pride, it's about protection. When a man stops sharing his internal world, it's usually because he's realized it's safer to stay silent than to risk being misunderstood or exposed again. A strong woman recognizes the weight of what she's been given. She sees that a man's vulnerabilities are not weakness. They are a form of emotional courage. When he opens up about the things that scare him, about the ways he doesn't feel enough, or about the dreams he's too afraid to chase, he's not looking for someone to fix it. He's looking for someone to sit with it, to hold it, to protect it. And when she does that, when she guards his truth the way she would want hers guarded, it builds a level of intimacy most people never reach. It says, I see you, I hear you, and I will never use your pain as a conversation starter. Not every moment of connection needs to be processed with someone else. Sometimes, the most powerful act of love is quiet protection. It's in choosing to carry someone's truth without needing to release the weight by handing it off to others. It's in understanding that what makes a relationship strong isn't just communication, it's confidentiality. It's knowing that not everything said in trust needs to be repeated. It's being a vault when someone hands you the keys to the most fragile parts of themselves. That level of protection isn't loud, it's not performative, but it's one of the deepest forms of loyalty there is. When you make the decision to guard your partner's insecurities with tenderness and silence, you give him something the world rarely offers: emotional safety. You allow him to be a full human being with fears, flaws, and doubts, without the fear of judgment or exposure. And in doing so, you don't just protect him, you protect the bond between you. Because love isn't just found in the loud declarations and public moments. It's rooted in the quiet choices we make when no one else is watching. Every relationship goes through those little daily frustrations, the moments when he doesn't text back fast enough, when he forgets something important, when he doesn't pick up on your mood or misses a detail you've mentioned 3 times. Those things can build up. And in the moment, they feel big, they feel loud, they feel like something you just have to let out. And the easiest way to do that is to pick up the phone, go to your best friend, and say exactly what's bothering you. It's venting, right? It feels innocent. But what you're doing without realizing it is laying the foundation of how others see your relationship, brick by brick, complaint by complaint, moment by moment. You start feeding a narrative that becomes more real in their minds than the love you actually live every day. It starts small. You casually mention how he never helps with the dishes. Then maybe another time, you bring up how he didn't make an effort on your anniversary. Later, you throw in a story about how he forgot to pick something up from the store after promising he would. You don't mean any harm. You're just sharing, getting it off your chest, feeling heard. But your friend, she's not living your day-to-day. She's only seeing the cracks. She's hearing the complaints, but not the context. She's noticing the patterns, but not the progress. And now she has an image of your man that's made entirely out of frustration and flaw. And here's the thing. You forgive him. You move forward. You have a conversation. You explain why something hurt you, and he listens. You two work through it, because that's what real relationships do. But your friend doesn't forget. She wasn't there for the repair. She didn't witness the growth. She didn't hear his side. She didn't feel the sincerity when he said, "I'm sorry, I'll do better." So now every time his name comes up, she's operating from that same pile of negative snapshots you handed her. Not because she doesn't want you to be happy, but because she only knows the version of him you showed her when you were annoyed or disappointed. When you constantly voice every irritation to your friends, you're not just releasing steam, you're letting someone else influence how you feel about your partner. Eventually, you'll start to internalize their reactions, their surprise, their judgment, their side comments. Those things add weight. You begin to question whether your relationship is healthy, whether you're settling, whether you're being too patient, and those doubts didn't come from within. They came from planting seeds in soil that was never meant to hold them. You invited opinions into a space that thrives best in privacy, in patience, and in trust. A relationship grows in the places where two people are allowed to be human. It matures in the quiet, repetitive work of showing up, apologizing, trying again. That work isn't glamorous. It doesn't always make for exciting stories. But that's where love lives. That's where it strengthens. And when you share only the hard parts, only the parts that annoy you, you strip your relationship of the beauty it's built on. You forget to mention the things he does right, the way he looks at you when you're not speaking, the effort he makes even when he doesn't get it perfect. You silence the softness and only speak the struggle. Protecting your relationship doesn't mean you never speak about challenges. It means you speak about them in places where healing can happen, not where judgment lives. There's a difference between talking through a problem with someone who can guide you back to clarity and unloading on someone who's just going to nod and add more fuel to the fire. Choose the difference wisely, because what you protect grows. What you water with negativity wilts. If you want a love that lasts, one that's strong enough to hold both your joy and your struggle, you have to learn when to speak and when to simply hold space. Not everything that frustrates you needs to be shared. Some things need to be understood, processed, and let go in silence. That silence isn't weakness, it's strength, it's wisdom, and it's the kind of emotional maturity that keeps relationships steady even when life gets loud. Money is one of the most personal parts of any relationship, and it often carries more emotional weight than people realize. It's not just about numbers, salaries, or bank accounts. It's about security, decisions, dreams, and how two people navigate life together. When a man opens up about his financial situation, whether it's something he's proud of or something he's working on, he's letting you into a space that most people guard tightly. And when you take that information and share it with friends, no matter how casually or how innocently, it changes everything. It shifts the energy from personal to public. It invites outside judgment into a space that should remain safe and sealed between the two of you. It might feel like harmless conversation at first. Maybe you're talking about how he's saving for something big, how he handles bills, or what kind of spending habits he has. Maybe you're venting about a disagreement you had over money or expressing frustration about how financial decisions are made. But what you're actually doing is opening up one of the most sacred corners of your relationship to people who haven't earned the right to be there. You're turning financial intimacy into something open for debate, and that can have consequences that stretch far beyond the moment you spoke about it. Because now, others are forming opinions about how he leads, how he provides, how he plans, and whether he's enough. Money is deeply tied to a man's sense of identity. For many men, how they handle finances is connected to how they view themselves as a partner, as a protector, and as someone who wants to build a life that feels stable and meaningful. When his finances are shared or judged, it's not just a conversation. It's a hit to something internal. It makes him wonder if he's being measured by a standard he didn't agree to. It makes him pull back from discussing future plans or financial stress because he doesn't know if what he says will stay between you or be passed along over lunch with your friends. That doubt, that hesitation, creates a gap. And once that gap forms, communication becomes less open, less vulnerable, less connected. Some of the strongest relationships are built not on wealth, but on financial transparency, respect, and teamwork. That can only happen when both people feel safe enough to be honest about where they are, what they want, and how they plan to get there. But when financial privacy is broken, the teamwork starts to fall apart. One person becomes guarded, the other becomes unsure, and suddenly, what used to feel like a partnership starts to feel like a performance. A man who feels like his financial world is being shared may start making decisions alone just to avoid being questioned. He may stop discussing challenges because he fears being embarrassed or misunderstood. The most powerful relationships are the ones where two people can talk about money with honesty and without shame, where one person doesn't feel like they're being compared or judged, and the other knows how to support without broadcasting every detail. Keeping financial matters private isn't about secrecy, it's about loyalty. It's about recognizing that the way your partner handles money is a reflection of his journey, his values, his fears, and his goals. And those things deserve respect, not review. When you talk about his income, his spending habits, or his financial decisions with friends, you risk turning trust into tension. You create a narrative that may not even be accurate, but it starts to define how others view him and eventually how you view him too. We live in a world where people love to compare lifestyles, judge success, and weigh someone's worth based on numbers. But love doesn't survive in comparison. It survives in commitment. It thrives in privacy, in moments when two people choose to handle things quietly, thoughtfully, and with care. You don't need to share everything for your relationship to be real. In fact, the things you choose to protect often speak louder than the ones you choose to expose. Financial matters are one of those areas that require discernment, emotional intelligence, and a deep understanding of what truly builds trust. It's not in what you earn, but in how you honor what your partner shares that determines the strength of what you're building together.